Oh, hello everyone. I've been asked already to elaborate on one or two terms within the slideshow about the co-trustee role. The first thing I think I would deal with is the maritime law. Maritime law uh, is supposed to be secondary to the laws of the land. These sovereign laws that actually decide how people want to do things within their own country, what is considered just, what is considered unjust, what is considered a crime, and holding people accountable for the things that are happening. But that was overtaken by the maritime law, which is a commercial thing. So that manifests, for example, in Ireland, that you can have a puppy farm license um, for however many animals you want, but you have to, as long as you're making money from it. So the goalposts become trade and who is maybe taking profit from someone else. So it's nothing to do with people or crime or justice and fairness anymore. So maritime law has taken over, and we're actually bringing the trust funds back under the law of the land, so that and who is supposed to oversee maritime law is the Universal Postal Service. And that is because they preceded, the Universal Postal Union preceded all governments, preceded all, they are the founders and they're supposed to be the overseers of all commercial law. And so that means that it's supposed to mean that fair trade is guaranteed across the single postal territory, which is all places. And that should mean that you can get a parcel, you can do trade, you can send letters, you can send money between any places in the world and make it's all totally fair and accessible, and there to make that so. But one of the things in there, so they've obviously been failing in that obligation. But another thing that they did establish was because governments came second, they offer to stay going even if a government has to be dismantled. That is also in their founding document, because people will still need to be able to communicate with each other even if they don't have a government. So there is a strong role there. The postal court is a higher jurisdiction than the usual courts. And so they have the courts and they have the superior jurisdiction to commercial and maritime. And you didn't ask this, but the third jurisdiction is the air jurisdiction, which is the Vatican and that bank and that city and that um, uh, system that's in place. So these different jurisdictions vying for each other, and there's the postal jurisdiction. So we're having to work a little bit in maritime law because that was the law that was the jurisdiction within which all the court documents we have, or the majority of them, were finalised and agreed most recently. So that's why maritime's important. The Committee of 300 are an unelected, unaccountable group of 300 people who oversee the financial system. And it has long been overdue that something about that changes, maybe quite a few things, but there are quite a lot within the Committee of 300 who are coming over to the fact that this needs to be the trust funds and the prosperity and the end of the corrupt system that recognises only debt and none of the credit side of economics is being acknowledged. So the Committee of 300 are the ones that knew and decided and committed to paper and agreed that all those deposits had been made and were to be made in every single nation of the world. Not only did they say that, yes, 20,000 tons of gold were deposited in such and such a country, but they also added it must not be programmed. So they knew well that there was this move to less and less of a gold reserve, less and less of a golden peg, which is basically that you have some sort of reserve in your vaults against the money that you're lending as a bank. And now you see the push towards digital currencies and quantum financing systems, when actually they're not backed by anything, and they can't be backed and thieved even further from the trust funds, because they are not to be programmed. So they tied it up, and that is one of our proof of funds. There's two others, which is the World Bank Infinite Account Statement, and then the Euroclear Financing House Statement. So that's that. That's the Committee of 300 Maritime Law. The Postmaster Generals, that is important because what we've done is we've been correcting our status over the last 10 years. Most of us have done it to a greater or lesser extent. One of the things that you're doing is you're using the Postal Service. So you are saying, I am a living woman. You have to respect your own Postal Service laws by acknowledging this communication. In the same way, when I went to Switzerland to file the claim against the World Economic Forum and World Health Organization, I registered posted. So we're using Universal Postal Service legal instruments to establish our jurisdiction again, because it was supposed to be a service for us, the people, rather than for the corporate jurisdictions. So we've used that service, and some of us have made ourselves, sometimes inadvertently, postmaster generals, but because or postmasters anyway, because we have used these instruments and we've managed to claim our jurisdiction back. It has to be acknowledged by courts. It has to be acknowledged by various different authorities or assumed authorities, like governments and councils and police trying to extract further fines from us for one reason and another, all fraud, but difficult to prove. So why it's been important to use the Postmaster General and the Postmaster instruments. So I think that covers the ones that I was asked about, and I can do other ones another time.